Hello, James here. I'm going to play a video. I mentioned on my past video about this guy that's worrying about Anglo-Saxon white people going to extinct. And I'm going to show you some videos I've probably done in the past that shows you basically what is he worried about when there are counties and states that are still majority that are white. And this commentator Lucas, Amazing Lucas, he
stock market losses and rising inflation have left investors with few options. Ground Floor is here to help with a reliable way to earn cash while saving for the future. You don't have to let the stock market decide the fate of your portfolio. Investing in real estate debt on Ground Floor provides a low-risk way to earn high yield.
The fragility of this video is delicious. Oh my goodness. So one of the main reasons that I left the right is that I came to the conclusion that there are even more races than the left. And I think everything that has transpired since then has proven that to be an accurate statement. Because this video, this leaked audio of Matt Walsh is, man, it is the chef's kiss. It really is. It is emblematic of all the criticisms that I've levied against the conservative right for a while now. And as I've said before, when they mention America or Americans, they're referencing white people. They're not mentioning, they don't think about black Americans. That's not what they consider as America, as the poster child of America. They view it as white. When they talk about this country, they mean white people. That's what they mean. Now, they've tried to deny, oh, that's not what we mean. We mean everyone. We want all Americans. This doesn't mean if you're black, white, blah, blah, blah. But that's bullcrap. And I can't stand that bullcrap. It's tantamount to when they're celebrating Independence Day and they're like, well, you know, later on, you guys can come on too. It's for everybody. It's like, no, that's not what Independence Day was about, okay? That's not what it was about. While you had, as far as black American slaves, y'all were celebrating freedom and then invited Frederick Douglass to do a speech. This is the type of hypocrisy that is this country. This is the type of anti-black hatred that is America. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, as long as you're trying to rectify this anti-black sentiment that has, created very, very strong roots in this country. But even acknowledging that, when it comes to the white conservative, they say, oh, why you have to make it about race? It's like, we didn't make it about race. Black people, black Americans, have never made it about race.
I have never seen so many people
about race. Black people, black Americans, have never made it about race. We wanted to go to the water fountain just like you. We didn't make it about race. We wanted to live in that neighborhood just like you. We didn't make it about race. There is, the litany of things that these group of people have done and then trying to gaslight us and to make it seem that, hey, we're the problem, is astronomical. It really is. And in this video, it is gold. Because you have this guy who clearly is in an interracial marriage, right? His wife is clearly Mexican, and he's talking to Matt Walsh. And he's like, hey, listen, people can come over here from Mexico and assimilate. And Matt Walsh is like, no. Listen, race and culture are the same. It's not going to happen. Of course you're going to bring your culture over here. All right? Anglo-Saxons created this country.
Bringing the culture with them, of course they're going to. Of course they're going to. That's what makes them Mexican. Of course they will.
I'm saying if they stop identifying themselves as just Mexicans and they start, appreciating the country that they currently reside.
What is the country?
America.
Well, then what does that mean? If you take away the Anglo-Saxon culture, which is what started this damn country.
Yeah, but you could adopt philosophies, is my point. So I'm confused by race or culture. Like, what do you promote here?
Both. You can't separate them. They're the same.
And I'm just thinking to myself, are we still going off of this lie? Is this really what we're still going off of? Right? It's crazy because this video was in 2011, I believe. And I'm like, do people still believe that they created this country? Because that's as bad as you still believing in the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus or that Christopher Columbus discovered America. Like, what other whitewash myths, not even myths, just bold-faced lies, what other lies are they still perpetuating? Like, listen, there was no country. Do they understand this? That there was land. That's all there was. And in fact, they were giving away land. They were asking people to come over here and please use this land. And guess how they used the land? These mofos were so lazy that what did they use? They used slave labor. And it's crazy when they try to dismiss or downplay the role that labor had in this country. Like, you wouldn't have anything if it was not for Black American labor. And you guys couldn't let it go to the point that you tried to racialize slavery, which was a wild concept. Because they want to talk about everyone was slaves. But there was only one group of people that tried to pin slavery as a good thing, as it was beneficial to Black people. This type of wickedness is the same type of wickedness that I've said before, that we see all throughout history. There is a lineage of evil that currently we are dealing with. And I want people to understand what he is saying. When it comes to assimilation, this is essentially just get out. So they want to strip you of your Blackness, of your Black American culture, and assimilate you into theirs. That's where you get the Brandon Tatums. That's where you get the conservative perspective. That's where you get the Candace Owens. That's where you get these Black conservatives, because they have stripped away who they are as a Black person and have replaced that with white platitudes and white concerns. That's why they don't speak on behalf of Black people, but they speak to Black people on the behalf of white people, because that's their job in this country. That's how they have made it to the positions that they are in, by as far as, giving cover for the racist, dominant society. But then the audio gets even better, because then Matt Walsh starts crying about birth rates. I kid you not, all the stuff that I've heard, whether it's Dr. Francis Welsing, whether it's Claude Anderson, whether it's a litany of Black scholars, everything, this is the accumulation of all of their work in an audio bite. He's complaining about birth rates. He's like, listen, we're just gonna die out. And I'm just like, what?
Friends, I'm ecstatic to make this groundbreaking announcement. PragerU is now making it into school.
Oh, and I'm just like, what? Are you, what? Is he really saying this? Is this really what they're thinking? Because you can always assume, right? This is probably what you, based on how you're behaving, right? Based off of how you behaved in the past, which is from an inferiority complex, I can now see, how you're behaving currently and probably what you think.
When the original inhabitants of at least the United States of America are dying off because we've decided we're too cool to have kids, then why wouldn't they bring their culture? Because there's a cultural void. What I'm saying is that when we die off, as we have been, we have left a cultural void.
What you think, which is leading to these actions of inferiority, because a group of people who believe them to be superior don't behave the way that these races have behaved historically. They don't do that. What they have done is exactly what the scripture says they've done, to kill, steal, and destroy. That's literally what they have done for centuries and centuries and centuries. And then try to downplay that due to inventions that many of them stole or many of them were assisted with. Like saying, hey, but look at what we created. And it's like, yeah, but at what cost though? And what you created is nothing more than corruption. It's just a nice, fancier corruption than other countries in which you decimated. Right? You go to another country, decimate it, destroy, the rulers, destroy the foundation, then come back here and say, well, look how great we are. It's like, well, you freaking pillaged over here, you destroyed over here, you toppled that system over here. Of course you're going to be good. Of course you're going to be better than the other people that you destroyed. But that's another story. I just find it interesting of Matt Walsh crying about, hey, well, we need to create more white babies. Because that's what he's saying. And it's hilarious. Because the guy doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. Because the dude is still talking about, well, listen, my wife Maria, Maria is not Anglo-Saxon. And, I think she's adopted into the culture, which is, think about this, they're saying what I've been saying for quite some time, and what people before me have been saying for decades and generations.
I mean, like I married somebody I don't think Maria's Anglo-Saxon, and she definitely has left her culture at the door. So, I mean, if Maria and I have 5 kids, like, now I'm confused. Am I perpetuating the problem, or
that's what they want. They want to duplicate a white person. That's what they want. Whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, that's their goal. That's what they want. That's what the guy is saying who is married to a non-white person. He's saying, hey, I've got her. I've assimilated her. She thinks just like you and me. And Matt Walsh is going a step further by saying, listen, that's not good enough. Because what he tries to do is backpedal. He's trying to say, well, you're trying to make me out to be this racist or whatnot, and that's not what I'm saying.
Keep bringing this up, and it makes me look like I'm making some racist point. I know you're saying that's what you're trying to do, but that's obviously not what I'm saying. Have relations and kids with whoever you fall in love with. That's great. All I'm saying is that as a general rule, for our culture and our identity to continue, we need to just procreate.
All I'm saying is, and he then goes on to talk about, hey, essentially what he said in the beginning, which is race and culture are the same, and that white people need to have babies with other white people in order to keep the population alive, in order to keep their birth rates alive, or else they're gonna become extinct. And he goes on to say, well, we had a good 300-year run and something like that, but it is what it is.
Or we can become extinct. If that's the route we choose, then hey, it was a good run. Got a good 300 years out of it, almost.
And it's just like, this is wild to actually hear this. It's just wild to actually hear this from someone of such prominence, such as Matt Walsh. You have, the cretins of the political arena saying this stuff. You have, offshoots, YouTube channels and stuff like saying this stuff. But it's so interesting to see, this really is what you guys think and what you guys fear. This is amazing. Because in addition to all of this, he talks about the Civil War was a culture problem.
That's why we fought the Civil War to begin with, was because there was a culture difference between the North and the South.
Think about what he just said. He said the Civil War was a culture problem. Now, mind you, he just said earlier that race and culture are the same. You can't separate the two. Who was the Civil War between? Was it between whites and blacks? Huh? Was it between whites and Asians? Who was the Civil War between? The Civil War was between white people and white people. So what are you talking about? Your whole theory of race and culture completely gets destroyed. Who's the culture that we have right now? Who's causing your children to transition? Is it black culture? No. Nothing in black American culture or African American culture promotes or accepts what's going on currently. Who's causing your children to be a part of the alphabet? Huh? It's not black culture. Whose culture is this? It's white culture. It just is what it is. Who's causing as far as the bestiality and everything? It's not black culture. It's not us. It's your culture. Who's causing as far as when it comes to inflation, when it comes to homeless, when it comes to poverty, when it comes to the greed, and when it comes to the corporation greed, when it comes to crony capitalism? Whose culture is that? Whose culture is that? It's not our culture. It's not our culture, right? We tried to build, and we see one group of people have constantly throughout history tried to destroy. They got so upset when we were building that they bombed an entire block. Think about that. They got upset when we were building communities that they used the government to enact their racism and build highways through our communities and kicked us out. So when they talk about culture and, we need the culture and this is the culture that built America, I don't think so, Pimpin. I don't think so, okay? Because they're delusional. It's from a form of inferiority. And this is why the birth rates are going down, because regardless of your skin color, when it comes to man and woman, a woman wants a man, and a man wants a woman. And unfortunately, a lot of these white males they're not men. You know, they're constantly complaining. They're whining about, oh, I'm being attacked, right? You had the one song, right? The one song talking about the rich men of Northmen. Oh, why me and everything I do, right? And it's just like, well, everything you're showing is that you become pussified. That's what it is. You everything that you despise and hate allegedly, you've embraced. So naturally, if the women, if they want a man, well, they have to go venture out. Because they can't listen to you complain and cry and then eventually transition, which is what many of these white males are doing, or, you know, offing themselves and then leaving the family alone, you know, because they can't, you know, go to therapy and get some help. Right? Which is crazy, because if you think of black men and the history we have in this country, it's nowhere near the off rate of when it comes to white males. But then, you know, it's just very interesting when you juxtapose the two. So what it leads a gap, because these women still want men, they still want families. So what do? They venture out. They go to Mexican men, they go to Asian men, they go to black men, because white men have I don't know. I don't know what happened. I really don't know what happened. I would say it's God. That's who I would say. I would say God. You know, it's coming full circle. All the horrible, wicked behavior that you've been doing and showing to other groups of people. Not all of them, but the racist ones. That's what we have to be clear. Because a lot of the progress that is happening is due to, you know, the John Browns of society. But the non-John Browns, they're really suffering, right? You can see the incel rate is skyrocketing. So they're really getting all the wickedness, unfortunately, that they put out into the world. And when it comes to the culture, well, if you're so in love with the race and culture belief, then go somewhere else. Leave the U.S., okay? Leave. If you don't care about the land, which is the United States, then fine. Go somewhere. We'll give you guys a little piece of land somewhere in Africa, okay? And you can have the white people and your Anglo-Saxon culture on a little strip of land in Africa, okay? How about that? Simple. I think that's a good deal. You should take it. Anyways, guys, that's a video. Let me know what you guys think. Whether or not you believe, look at this. No, that's not true. That's racist. You're being racist. Look, that's not what he meant. Or if you believe, you see that right there? That little whining, that little fragility. That's why you're in the position you're in. That's why your little Timmy is transitioning. That's why little Timmy doesn't get, either is transitioning, can't get girls, and is surely not having families. That's why your birth rates are declining. That right there. You know, and then on the flip side, then you get the January 6th, which is like, well, who wants to reproduce with a person with an IQ below room temperature? So, I mean, it seems like a catch-22 for y'all, but, you know, it is what it is. That's God. Nevertheless, if you happen to disagree with the video, you're more than welcome to call in during disagreement days. We're typically held Friday through Sunday.
You know you should be planning for the future, but savings accounts
there are other people
and
with
investing can be
classified
scary.
and this young
At
woman
Ground
gonna point
Floor,
this out
we
in this
believe
video.
there's a better way.
And
Our
her
products offer
channel
the
is
easy access of a savings account with the real returns of investing.
YTN.
We call it
watch
Savesting.
The Supreme Court said you can be Aryan, you can be Caucasian, but that doesn't mean you are white. There's just been an idea of people not wanting to be black. And we look at the updated requirements for U.S. citizenship in 1870. Being from Africa was okay. Of African descent was okay. Being white was okay. But if you were somewhere in between and you didn't fit neatly into this box or this box, you were out of luck. Because he didn't try to fight for equality. What he actually tried to do was kind of sneaking through the back door. Hi, I'm Danielle Romero. Thank you so much for being with me again today on my channel, where I am in the middle of a series about how different groups were able to get citizenship in the United States. And almost all of that is pivoted on the term free white persons. And I want to talk today about the experience of Indian Americans naturalizing in the United States. Now, when I say Indian, I don't mean Native American, but really people from India of South Asian descent. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court
has been brought in on these issues so many times, deciding not only who can become a citizen, but first, who is white. The U.S. Supreme Court said that you can be Aryan and Caucasian and still not be white and not have the right to become a U.S. citizen. Now, when I hear the term Aryan or Caucasian, it's in the schema connects that to white, right? And it was just so shocking to me to see these being separated from each other. So 100 years ago, in 1923, there was an extraordinary man named Bhagat Singh Thind who found himself at the center of a legal battle that would challenge the very notion of race and citizenship here in the United States.
I was deemed Aryan and Caucasian, but not white, and was not permitted to become a U.S. citizen.
But before we get into the court case, I want to tell you a little bit about the man himself. A remarkable figure in Indian American history, was an esteemed writer and lecturer on spirituality. He was actually Sikh. So his connection with the United States began when he enlisted in the army shortly before the conclusion of World War I. And after the war, he sought to become a naturalized citizen, capitalizing on this legal precedent that had granted Caucasians access to such rights. Now, if you have watched my video about the 5 skull types, if not, I'll link to it in the description. But there are these 5 skull types that people were kind of using as understanding about race, and one of them was Caucasian precedent that granted Caucasians access to such rights. Identifying himself as Aryan or Caucasian, he found himself at the center of a 1923 Supreme Court battle. The United States versus Bhagat Singh Thind. Now, at the time, as with these other court cases, there was this battle of this understanding of who is a free white person. Now, the founding fathers used this phrase that a free white person of good character was eligible to become a U.S. citizen. But then 100 years later, in 1870, after the Emancipation Proclamation, something else was added to that. So you could either be a free white person, or you could be a person of African descent or an alien of African nativity. So that's right, you had to be either white or African to be a citizen. And he decided to argue that because he was Caucasian, he was white. Now, this court case is absolutely fascinating to me because up until this point, there's just been an idea of people not wanting to be black. But all of that goes out the window, and we look at the updated requirements for U.S. citizenship in 1870. But if you were somewhere in between and you didn't fit neatly into this box or this box, you were out of luck. The Supreme Court unanimously rejected Thin's argument, stating that he did not meet the, quote, common sense definition of white. In the ruling, the Supreme Court concluded that Thin's assertion of being Aryan or Caucasian based on linguistic similarities did not make him eligible for citizenship. That means the Supreme Court said you can be Aryan, you can be Caucasian, but that doesn't mean you are white. They firmly held that the term Aryan was unrelated to physical characteristics, so I'm not really sure what it would be related to, and that Thin's resemblance in language alone was insufficient to establish a common racial word. His culture was too different to give him the designation as white. Now, remember though, if you were of African heritage or African nativity, you could become a citizen. Now, this decision had far-reaching consequences, as you can imagine.
Whether it's a gin and tonic, a delicious meal, or a sparkling Paloma, if 3/4...
Now, this decision had far-reaching consequences, as you can imagine, leading to the denaturalization. That's right, they took away citizenship from about 50 Asian Indian Americans who had earlier successfully applied and received U.S. citizenship. It was a deeply unsettling moment where scientific racial categories were clashing with societal perceptions and legal interpretations. I want to share a quote from the opinion of the Supreme Court written by Justice Sutherland from the Library of Congress. He said, "The words of familiar speech, which were used by the original framers of the law, were intended to include only the type of man they knew as white. The immigration of that day was almost exclusively from the British Isles and northwestern Europe, whence they and their forebears had come. When they extended the privileged American citizenship to, quote, any alien being a free white person, it was these immigrants, bone of their bone and flesh of their flesh, and their kind, whom they must have had affirmatively in mind. It is a matter of familiar observation and knowledge that the physical group characteristics of the Hindus render them readily distinguishable from various groups of persons in this country commonly recognized as white. I just want to pause there and just reiterate the fact that you needed to be a free white person of good character or someone from African heritage. But think about that in the terms of what he's describing here. The children of English, French, German, Italian, Scandinavian, and other European parentage quickly merge into the mass of our population and lose the distinctive hallmarks of their European origin. On the other hand, it cannot be doubted that the children born in this country of Hindu parents would retain indefinitely the clear evidence of their ancestry. The 1923 Literary Digest article was called Hindus Too Brunette to Vote Here, which is available through the South Asian American Digital Archive. Now, to understand this ruling, we have to delve into the reasoning provided by the court. The court justified its decision by stating the words that free white person, which were from... Now, the court believed that the original framers of the law had intended only one type of person to be white. People from the British Isles and northwestern Europe. Finn had such an interesting perspective during this legal case because he didn't try to fight for equality. What he actually tried to do was kind of sneaking through the back door. And he pointed out that he was a, quote, high caste Hindu, and stating that because he came from North India, the, quote, original home of the Aryan conquerors, then he must also belong to the Caucasian or Aryan race. Now, if you know anything about the caste system in India,
why is Clear Choice different? It's the whole package. All of the pieces that the patient...
Know anything about the caste system in India, it's pretty horrifying. He was trying to use this to his advantage to say, hey, we're not a monolithic group. There are levels and designations to people from India, and I'm at the top. And I'm of the same heritage as so many of these other groups who are allowed to be white. Now, as a result of this decision, the path to American citizenship for individuals of Indian ancestry was just abruptly closed. Like I said, people were losing their citizenship, and now it's just over. Finn's own lawyer, Sakaram Ganesh, actually faced denaturalization himself during this court case. Now, the repercussion of these revoked naturalized statuses were enormous. So I want you to imagine that you've gotten citizenship in a country and all the rights thereof. Now it's gone. What rights do you have? Well, for instance, certain Asian Indian landowners in California suddenly found themselves subjected to the California Alien Land Law of 1913. Attorney General Ulysses S. Webb, who is a strong advocate for the Asiatic Exclusion League, you heard that right, actively worked to invalidate land purchases made by these people, promising to prevent Indians from acquiring or leasing land. With mounting pressure and the Immigration Act of 1917 preventing new immigration from coming in, which could have supported the Indian American community, you know, if the more people coming in kind of allow their voice, many Indians chose to leave the country. As a result, by 1940, only half of the original Indian population remained in America, about 2,400. It wasn't until 1935, so it's more than a decade later, when the Nye Lee Act was passed, granting World War I veterans eligibility for naturalization regardless of race. And at this point, Finn made another petition for naturalization. This was his third one. And finally, based on his status as a U.S. military veteran, he was granted United States citizenship nearly 20 years after his initial application. As World War II unfolded, and public support for Asian Indians grew, along with the impending independence of India, the Indian community activated for an end to legislative discrimination. The repeal of the Chinese exclusion laws in 1943 and the extension of naturalization privileges to the Chinese community provided hope for similar progress among Asian Indians.
Bank of America recently warned its clients that all checking accounts are likely to be replaced with digital dollars. Why?
Indians. Now, despite opposition from certain members of Congress and the American Federation of Labor, the Indian community gained support from influential congressmen and President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And ultimately, on July 2nd, 1946, President Truman signed the Luce Seller Act into law. This landmark legislation not only reversed the Finn decision, but also explicitly extended racial eligibility for naturalization to individuals from India, establishing a modest annual immigration quota of only 100 individuals. So they're saying, okay, well, you can come, but only this many of you can come.
Just like
now, the passage, though, of this act represented a significant milestone nonetheless in the fight against discrimination. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me in this story, honestly, is the fact that it wasn't just you have to be white to be a citizen, because you can be white or African, but not anything in between. And I think this just goes to show how dangerous these binary groupings are. People have kind of commented on these videos, oh, why are you only going after white as being something silly? Why aren't you going after black as something silly? Now, again, I know people use these terms to self-identify, and if that's how you identify, that's great. Like, use whatever terms you prefer. But when I'm stepping back and we're doing kind of the bird's eye view historically of this, to force people to say, I belong to this group or this group, and they're somewhere in between. I would love your thoughts on this, because again, we've been kind of breaking things into this idea of like, who counts as white? Well, here we have this, it's like, who counts as white or who counts as black, and anything in between is out of here. And the other thing is, like, this obviously is going beyond just skin color, though, because I have had friends who have, origin from South Asia, and some of them are darker than people with African ancestry. So we can't just go and say, well, this is just colorism, because if it was just colorism, then they would not say people from African ancestry were okay to become citizens. Now, I know that it's directly tied to the Emancipation Proclamation and the enslaved people here in the United States, but it's just another part of this equation that we have to wrestle with. So if you are interested in watching any more videos like this, I'll leave the playlist here at the end. Let me know what you think.
Farrow Harley-Davidson is loaded with certified used bikes. Don't just buy any used bike, buy a certified pre-owned Harley-Davidson from America's oldest Harley.
Every day, the white supremacists always have something in the back of their mind when it comes to black people. They know what they have done to us historically, even all the way up into 2023. You see, they would have that thought in the back of their mind about black people if they weren't doing us wrong. Understand? Black people never wanted to really get at them about it. Black people just wanted to live in peace. They even wanted to forgive black people, and yet these people still attacking black folks every day. But I want you to hear what this gentleman is going to say about what their greatest fear is with black folks. Let's roll it.
It is the stupidity of man to think that he can do evil, even some monstrous evil, and it won't have any backlash on himself. But of course, it seldom works that way, and the moment he figures that out, he starts looking for a way to avoid the repercussions of what he's done. This is what happened with slavery. In the early 1800s, as it began to look like the end of slavery might be on the horizon, white America started to be concerned that a day of reckoning was coming. The primary fear for the average person was of retribution and insurrection, and that was a reasonable fear. After all, it's illogical to think that you can do to a whole group of people what was done to African Americans and think that they will just take it lying down forever. And of course, there were things like the Nat Turner uprisings. But for the wealthy elite, their fears went beyond things like insurrection. They were worried about the financial impact. Remember, it was not just the cotton plantations that profited from slavery. Whether you're talking about the banks, or the insurance companies, the railroads, even the newspapers, the fact is that almost every aspect of the American economy was at some level or another invested in the slave business. You also need to recognize that for the wealthy elitists who controlled this system, slaves were an asset as long as they were slaves. But at the moment they are set free, they become a liability. And what the elite knew was that the end of slavery would instantly release 4 million people into the economy who had been kept uneducated and effectively unemployable anywhere but the cotton field. The other fear that these people had was intermarriage between blacks and whites would lead to a loss of racial purity. The question was, what were they going to do about it? And their initial thought was that they would just send all the slaves back to Africa. This plan was called colonization, and it had broad support among the wealthy elite. In fact, the American Colonization Society was even funded by the United States Congress. But in the end, colonization proved to be unworkable, and the idea was eventually scrapped. But about that same time, a new philosophy was emerging in the world. It was called eugenics, and for some, it seemed like the perfect solution to what had become known as the Negro Dilemma.
Now, he definitely touched on a lot of things. It's definitely, the one part that was, quite interested when they wanted to send all of us back to Africa through the American Colonization Society. That's what actually created Liberia, and it was shipping us back there, and they said it just didn't work for them. But you have to understand that shipping us back to Africa was actually done under Lincoln.
The other fear that these people had was intermarriage between blacks and whites would lead to a loss of racial purity. The question was, what were they going to do about it? And their initial thought was that they would just send all the slaves back to Africa. This plan was called colonization, and it had broad support among the wealthy elite. In fact, the American Colonization Society was even funded by the United States Congress.
And after Lincoln was, killed, I noticed that all that stopped. Because let's call it what it is. Black people were the labor force in America. Black people were all the builders, even after slavery. They wouldn't build anything, so you ship all black folks back to the African continent, then who's going to build something? Who's going to do the work? Because they sure didn't want to do it. They didn't want to get their hands dirty for anything, right? But he talked about eugenics. And this is why a lot of black people don't even trust the medical system at all in America due to that. So many experiments have been done to black Americans. Of course, we talk about Tuskegee and so many others that have been done to black people. Things have been done in prisons to black people just to even test out their medicine to see what's going to happen. But every day in the back of their mind, they deal with that guilt, shame, and thought about black people and their retribution. So when you have a message like reparations and you're forceful with it, it starts to bother them because they think in the back of their mind, are black people actually going to get angry and do us something? When you were talking about George Floyd, in the back of their mind, oh man, they out there actually doing something in the street. Are they going to get me because I look like the police? That's what they think. This is why they always have this attitude that they're scared of black folk and all of that. Because some black folk in their mind, especially when you're not afraid of them, and they know you're not afraid, they get really worried with you. But instead of dealing with their issues, they rather continue to attack us more and more and more. That's what they continue to do. Instead of dealing with things the right way.
That way. And the moment he figures that out, he starts looking for a way to avoid the repercussions of what he's done. This is what happened with slavery. In the early 1800s, as it began to look like the end of slavery might be on the horizon, white America started to be concerned that a day of reckoning was coming. The primary fear for the average person was of retribution and insurrection, and that was a reasonable fear. After all, it's illogical to think that you can do to a whole group of people what was done to African Americans and think that they will just take it lying down forever. And of course, there were things like the Nat Turner uprisings. But for the wealthy elite, their fears went beyond things like insurrection. They were worried about the financial impact. Remember, it was not just the cotton plantations that profited from slavery. Whether you're talking about the banks, or the insurance companies, the railroads, even the newspapers,
But it doesn't matter how they feel about us. It doesn't matter about their mindset at all. Only thing we got to focus on is ourselves, unifying in our community, focusing on what we need to fight for, like reparations, getting rid of the bootlicking, shucking and jiving raccoons that side with white supremacy, and making relations with black people all over the world, trading with each other, growing with each other. That's what we need to focus on, not these people. Because I would not want to be them. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't want to be in a position where, in the back of my mind, I'm worried about somebody getting at me. I wouldn't want to be in that position. That's a bad position to be in. I would never want to live like that. But let me know what y'all think about, what this man is saying here. Because they always had this attitude, what we going to do with black people? Who's going to control black people? That's what the Democrat and Republican fight is, to be honest with you. It's like, who's going to control black people? Which way we going to control them? Are we going to do it the Democrat way or the Republican way? That's all the fight's about.
So I found this website claiming to give free gift cards to Popeyes, and I actually got one, so let's test it out. Okay, so I'm going to leave the link right here.
Which is primarily funded by wealthy members of the religious right with ties to the fossil fuel industry.
Why was Marilyn in the coffee shop so far away from home when the neighborhoods around her?
Here in America, it is the persistence of sadism at our core. That was the same year Adam Smith wrote Wealth of Nations, which defined capitalism. Capitalism and America were both defined in 1776, and at both roots of American capitalism is the slave trade, the race to the bottom. Capitalism and America and the slave trade, all about the race to the bottom, paying workers as little as possible, nothing. The brutality, the savagery was all there in our nation's founding as well as capitalism's founding. And I look at this statue and I'm reminded America can't escape our past. It is, as they say, prologue. I am reminded that because the greedy here in the United States have reclaimed the high ground, even the moral high ground, they think they cloak themselves in religion. I'm reminded that because the greediest among us, the most sadistic among us, have taken over, we are very quickly returning to our nation's founding: slavery, sadism, racism. Our country was founded of slavery, and before that, indentured servitude, cheap labor. Many of the white men who came to America before the slaves were temporary slaves, indentured servants working for free to pay off debts, working for free to pay off sentences to the workhouse for crimes they committed back in Great Britain. Here we are in the 21st century, going home, going back to our roots. We have people here in America working for free in prisons. We already have millions of Americans working like indentured servants, unable to pay off crushing debt they rack up to go to college or just eat, pay their rent. We're seeing the legalization of child labor in places like Arkansas, and we already hear from both sides of the aisle that maybe college or even high school isn't necessarily for everyone. Instead of providing free tuition at all public universities, that's what Bernie wanted. Instead of providing free tuition at all public universities, we are now hearing that education is unnecessary for a certain class of people. The term liberal arts comes from ancient Rome. Liberal liberal arts, liberal because it was an education just for slaveholders, not slaves. It was an education just for the liberated. This is where we're heading. Back home, to our origins, the antebellum South, ancient Rome, where there were two types of people, the privileged elite and the slaves. We're heading back home. We're heading back home.
Well, very interesting how he said that. And it's almost like he's prophesizing, but he's telling the truth. I mean, just the way the jail system is, and what they're trying to do, break up laws, make up laws, and they're trying to. Yeah, I truly believe that. What he's saying. And it's something really, it's a wake-up call. But I wanted to show you from them telling it themselves. Let them tell it. So it don't seem like it's one side just telling it. There's just confirmation from the other side that's telling it. And what they scared, what is the fear? What some people fear. And it goes back to that subconscious racism. That subconscious racism is a mug. Like it's not correct. It's just we want to deny. Let's go away. That's just it's just the way it is. We want to deny it. We want to go away, and it's you can't run away from it. So it's really something really. What the man was saying, and see how in these last days people are coming forth, because when truth hit all flesh, it don't matter what color it is, it's what comes out of the man's heart, and what out of his conscience comes his heart, especially when they see what is wrong, and it's up to them. Are you going to speak on it, or are you going to let it go by? And in these last days, man, people come with it. And that's what it is. So when he was talking about the Antebellum, that's true. I saw a video on here that talked about that, how there were white women, that rich white women that would torment black women and use black men just for affairs and for just for hypersexual thing. And it's like, some of these relationships wasn't out of love. And then in a pregnancy, and then if the black slave didn't want to sleep with the white woman, she gonna tell her husband, and he come in and make him beat her, make him beat him, or torture him. And there's a video about that. This stuff is deep. And what does that have to do with now? Because it's the same spirit that what happens in the past. It transforms it to the present. It does. It transforms it to the present, and it just don't. It rears ugly head. But I made there was a video where the guy saying it. I don't see it because I'm gonna show you a quick video right quick where
states with the most whites are usually. Well, the states with the most whites are usually those in the northeastern part of the U.S. For collation of the whitest states in the U.S., we will be referring strictly to the data contained in the United States recent census, so you can be sure it is authentic. Below are the whitest states in the U.S. Number 11, Kansas. The last official census was done in the year 2010, but estimates are released yearly to keep abreast of the figures. As of 2015, the population of inhabitants in Kansas was recorded to have gotten to 2,911,641, an increase from the figure of 2,853,118 that is used at the time of the 2010 census. The whites in Kansas, the 15th biggest state in the United States, account for over 82%. Black or African Americans are next with a scanty 5.69%, followed by other races. Native Americans and Native Hawaiian are recorded to form the minority in Kansas. Number 10, Nebraska. According to the existing U.S. data, whites, non-Hispanic, account for the major amount of the population there. They form about 78% of the total number. White Hispanic is about 6.9%, followed by Black Americans, Asians, and the rest. This white-dominant state currently stands as the 33rd wealthiest state in the United States as a whole, with a per capita income of over $19,000 as of 2000. Number 9, Wyoming. Wyoming can be found in the Mountain West subregion of the western United States. The whites alone in Wyoming account for 84% of its population. The Latinos or Hispanics of any race come second with 10.6%. The blacks, African Americans, and Asians form the minority in Wyoming with 1.2 and 0.9% respectively. Number 8, Kentucky. The entire population in Kentucky is pegged at 4,494,141. This data is reported by the American Community Survey of the United States Census Bureau. Out of this number, the whites there account for over 85%, with blacks coming second, albeit distant, with 4.6%, and Hispanics at 2.5%. The whitest county in Kentucky is Magaffin County, named after Beriah Magaffin, the then governor of Kentucky from the year 1859 to 1862. It is the county in the state where the most whites reside. Number 7, Iowa. Iowa is filled predominantly with whites. They form about 73.8% of the entire population. Blacks are next with about 8.2% before other ethnic groups. Iowa, also known as the Hawkeye State, was crowned the number 1 state filled with opportunities due to the availability of resources present there. Number 6, South Dakota. As of 2020, South Dakota's total population stood at 879,000, with whites forming the largest ethnic group there. The whites non-Hispanic amount for about 81% of the entire population in the state. American Indians and Alaska Natives non-Hispanic come at a far distance with 8.36% before other ethnic groups. Data from reliable research also shows that over 97% of the inhabitants in South Dakota are citizens of the United States. It borders fellow white-dominant states like Montana, North Dakota, Iowa, Wyoming, and others. Number 5, North Dakota. Whites, non-Hispanic, amount for about 83% of whites in North Dakota, followed by American Indians and Alaska Natives non-Hispanic with a distant 4.89%, and other ethnic groups coming behind. This white-dominant state is rich due to the state's oil and honey exports, and of course farming too. This has helped earn them the title of being one of the richest states in the United States. Number 4, Montana. Montana is yet another state dominated by whites. More than 80% of the whole population there are whites. The state has about 5 distinct ethnic groups, of which the white non-Hispanic form the larger part. The others are American Indians and Alaska Natives, white Hispanics, and Asians. Number 4, New Hampshire. 91.98% of the entire population in New Hampshire is white. This is actually because of the decline in the number of whites there from 98% to what it currently is, all within the year 1990 till date. Imagine having a total population of 1,395,847 and almost 100% of them are white. The less than 9% remaining is being shared among Asians, Black, or African Americans, Native Americans, and other races. Number 3, West Virginia. West Virginia state comes third, and the statistics are there to prove it. The state records show that 92% of its entire population is white. This means that other ethnic groups amount to less than 8% of the population in the whole of the state. Number 2, Vermont. Vermont is another state in the northern part of the United States. The state is home to a lot of whites. About 93% of the entire population of Vermont is said to be white. The cities in Vermont where you are likely to find the most whites are Barre and Rutland. Number 1, Maine. By now, it should be common knowledge that the northeastern part of the United States is home to the most whites. Maine happens to be the northernmost state in the northeastern United States, and coincidentally, they have the largest percentage of whites. We are talking about a whopping 93.6% of the whole people in Maine being white. Belfast and Brewer, both cities in Maine, have been recorded to have the most whites. The statistics from credible research shows that more than 96% of the people in these cities are white. Coming across blacks here would be a rare occurrence from the looks of it. The United States Census Bureau states that about 75% of the population is pure white. This data was recently released in July 2021. This percentage is, however, shared amongst different states in the country. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to our...
So my question is, why is the first video, why would that guy have to worry about the white Anglo-Saxon male going into existence when clearly on his last video the white people in those states make up 90% of the population? There's no they run every industry is by white people. I don't get that. I don't get it. Why would someone? So a few white people, some who marry outside their race, it's like a small percentage. Most white people want to stay with white people. It's a fact. Like most black people stay with black people. Most Hispanic people in America stay with Hispanics. Most Asian people, East Indian, Middle Eastern people, all stay together. Even though we have a diverse groups of people here, found out everybody don't want to mix races as far as family intertwining and being mixed. Very seldom do. So there it is right there. There it is. So what is all the insecurities about? What you're insecure for? And that's what goes back what Amazing Luke is saying. What you insecure about? When you are 90% of the in different states, and even that's not including other states where there are counties. Even here in Ohio, our majority is white. Indiana, Pennsylvania, a majority is white. What are you talking about? And I just don't understand that, man. It's like, why would someone be that insecure about another group of people when you already majority of the people? And you worry about your son, your daughter, who's white, can go to and meet, and one day they get a boyfriend, girlfriend. 90% out of 10, they're gonna come. If they go into these white states, they're gonna meet their mate. So this is for the insecure. Oh my God, my race is our heritage is going, our Canadian, hillbilly, whatever Scottish heritage is going out. No, it's not. So there you have it. And if it does, it'd be like a 1%. It's like it's a small percent. Trust me. A lot of people are not married outside the race. And the delusion is that it's a few famous athletes and actors out of the whole demographic of people. And this, and so this should teach black people and white people. Nobody is mixing like you think you are. See, the commercial is that you see that stuff on the commercials and movies, but in real life, it ain't like that. When you go in majority of these towns, whatever state you in, majority is still white. And I'm speaking to the people who see race. They see it with their eyes, they assume it with their mind. That's who it is. And this could go for somebody black, white, or whatever other race. Majority of people are not going to be outside their race and whatever. And like I said, the reason why they want to go, because people that want, if they have children together, that want to look like them. That's a fact. They want to see their genetics in the next generation. That's a fact. That's all, no matter Italian, Greek, Scottish, Irish, whatever. Even if they mix in from Irish and Canadian, they still can see it. Native Americans stick with Native Americans. Some dip out with white. Some, maybe a few might step out with black, but majority of Native Americans were Native Americans across the country, which the ones left. Go and get different Native Americans. You'll see. So why is we all why are we doing this? So so it goes to show you, you can be friends with somebody, don't mean your child gonna fall in love with another person of a different race. In case it might be, if anything, they might turn out to be an alternative LGBTQ before they go with some of the other race. But that's the next thing that they pushing now. So I think you being LGBT, and that's the way it's heading. Especially you got men transition to women, women transition to men. So there you have it. But everybody's worried about this demographic of people. Well, you can have people in the same demographic, and you still not having enough people to have children because of alternative lifestyle. And so the people in alternative lifestyle, LGBTQ, may have to go and do insemination, go to the fertile clinic, and have children, have someone have their children to raise children, because that's the only way. But still, when it comes to legitimate family, mama, grandma, everybody from generation after generation, you see it. And every race of people, religion of people on the planet like to see that in their family. So there you have it. And it's in everybody. So we all guilty of it. We all guilty of it. But this, and it was just like, and then you see how the way the race is, like if you white Latino, you consider white. You white East Asian, you consider white. You see how the way they did that? It's still like that. It's still put on, and they still out dominate the darker on paper. You see how they do? You see how they did that? That's how race conscious America is. And we all give to us as individuals, we don't see color, but to this medical community, the statistic community, and even the people around the world say, "Dang!" Like other people, it's probably the origin. What part of origin? What part in America? We're one Western nation. Is race. Black, white, brown, tan, it's race. And then mainly, they I don't know why they so geared up on black people when they want to put that. If you're black, you have this kind of disease. If you're black, they always do that. They don't do that with any other race. That's how racist this country is. They so obsessed, even in the it's like 10, 15 different nationalities probably here right now, and it will come back to black. Well, the black population does it, and the black population. That's why I said people like. That's why I think that's why some people are jealous of this. It's like it's not our fault. These people are racist. The medical community is racist. The judicial system is racist. That's why I said we see race. Just look at it. And it gets you thinking, and you program with media that see race. What race are you? You're race. And some people do it directly, like in Mississippi, and somebody in DFC, Maine would do it not so directly. They do it indirectly because it wouldn't look political. And nobody would be labeled as a racist until something come out. Then when it comes near their family, then it become racist. But you had to see the one video I had where the guy moved up from Texas to Maine because he wanted to be in a white state. But hey, that's his choice. As long as you don't strike on other people, and you want to be white, whatever, and preserve your seed, whatever, I'm pretty sure the nationality is doing the same thing. You know, that's you choose. But when you take the problem up is with these people like them skinheads is that they come in and kick some rocks up and start attacking different groups of people. It's like it's okay, you're white, you're proud to be your Aryan, Hitler. Okay, we know that. And then some people to be like that, you want to go and play hateful music out in the forest. That's on you. But what it is that what the people don't, that's they choose. I mean, you can have a problem, and that's his right. Just like if you black and you want to be separate, if you're a black person want to be a separatist, Hispanic person want to be separatist, an Asian person want to be separatist. It is what it is. You want to separate from the other races? Because they are. They don't want to make money, but they want to be. I think they want to make money. Some of these other people do, but they really don't want you and their family. I mean, socially, it's like, yeah, we can do business and education, but that's as far as it go. That's why I always use the term Simon Says. That's how most people throughout the human race operate. A good percentage of people. Simon says we can make money off of you. We'll be friendly to you, but as far as it go, no, we have a standard because of our religion, our culture, and that's something what we do. It's not just black and white, it's other people too. They don't want to blend in with our seed either. We all love God though, but don't blend your seed in. That's the truth. And people don't want to directly say that, but if you put them on the spot and someone that look like them, they'll get more. They will reveal them to them more than someone who's opposite of what they look like. Because some people, they won't reveal it to someone because they don't want to be politically wrong or socially offensive. Hey, it's what it is. You'll say behind some people's back if them people were in your presence. So that's America. Even though we have every race in the world is here, but America has, I say it again, it has a spirit of racism, and it's a spirit that everybody has to put on a different pole, and it's taught by this Western society. Don't be with the darker races. That spirit's still in America and in other places. So the darker race said, okay, if you don't want to be next to us, let us separate. Why you want to separate? Well, you set up this so you don't want to be darker, don't want you to be around darker races. I'm less inferior than you and all this other stuff. Why I gotta sit around and put up with that? And there's some people who are the darker races that's saying, okay, We separate. See, I think that's what you call the different black activists, Pan-Africans and others. To be like, we cool, that's fine. It could go both way around. So you get it from one end to the other, but other people, and it's projected. They don't mind taking your dollar. They don't mind if you make them something. Well, you be one of their favorite. You be like the personal tool, they toy. But they don't like the rest of your people. And black people are one of the people treated like that in America. Not just from white people, other racist people too. And they'll play, well, I get discriminated too, but yet the same people that they get discriminated, because they look up to, they want to be in their circle. And it's the white people. That's where their business is at. They interact with them 90% of the time. The kids go to school with them. They're on the council. They're on the board. Everything. Especially going to the rural nice suburban areas. It's America, baby. That's America. And when you step outside the inner city, you see things like this. You see it. Just sit back and watch people. That's where they move to be part of the American dream. But they separate. But they even around. But it's cool. But there's a boundary. But yeah, that's how it is. But to get back to what he was. That's why I showed the statistic. What is Matt Walsh talking about? Oh, we're going. No, it's going to always be a heavy white population. Because I know white people are going to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. No. Because number one, the kids is going to see what they raise around. Number one reason. And maybe a certain majority of white kids is going to, when they get older, get into relationships. If it's not alternative, it's going to be with an opposite sex. So I don't know why these white people think like that. Oh, we're not having babies enough. Maybe it's because some people choose a career. And then it's the culture we live in. So that's what I would say. It's like, why do you? That's why these people. It's crazy. Like why would you feel? And Lucas is right. It's because your own insecurity has pushed the women away. And I've been subjected. I remember I tell you a long time ago when I had a friend of mine when I went away to school, and I was the only black dude on the floor. I didn't even sleep with this woman. But you should have seen the insecurity in the white dudes. And they do it cynical. They go do it cynically. Oh, you giving her the old dark salam? It's like, I don't know what's with that, man. It's like, why are you obsessed with a black man's phallus? What he do with his phallus? And that's I'm serious. Like, I don't joke around like that. Like, I never, wonder what was between a white man's legs. I mean, I don't even joke around like that. It's about his anus or anything. I don't joke like that, but yes, some guys be trying to be straight, whatever. But that's true. Like I've encountered that stuff, man. It's like, wow, man. I kind of look like they stupid. Like, are you for real? Give you that stupid look, like. Yeah, and they just don't. And it's something that they heard their buddy, their friend, or somebody in their household say. And it's everybody probably. It don't matter what your foulest part between your legs is. It might, which that should be irrelevant, but that really bothers some white men. That really do. You know? It's like, don't worry about that. You ain't trying to sleep with the whole damn world. Damn. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get off this video. But yeah. Yeah. Like I said in the other video, people, you be around, just listen to people. And sometimes they do it jokingly. It's like, what make them say something like that? But in a cynically, in a jokingly way, they let the insecurity come out. And I was never the kind of person confronted to be angry. I just let them be them. That's how I learned how some white guys are. They're very insecure when it comes to that, and they will really and tell their women. I know we go hard on it. You know, sometimes we might not like what our women do with other men. White men, because they're white women. Ooh, Jesus! Some of them, they say something about different races of men, especially black men. Oh my goodness! You can only imagine. They take a white woman and have to kind of tell you that story. Trust me, I know for a fact. But anyway, let me get on off this video. Sorry to take this long, but hey, the stats is there. Alright, then you guys be blessed. Until next time, see you on the next videos. Like, subscribe,